The mining world of Cora 7 was not a place for children. It was a land of dust, rust, and endless junkyards. Old machines lay broken under the red sun, and scavengers searched through piles of metal like hungry rats. Among them, a human man named Ryan walked slowly, his boots sinking into ash and sand. He was no hero, only a traitor and a survivor. But fate had decided to place something strange in his path today. As he moved between tall heaps of broken starship parts, he heard a sound. At first he thought it was a wild animal, a scratching noise, sharp and desperate. But when he turned the corner, his eyes froze. There, crawling on her knees, was a small alien girl. Her thin arms reached into a pile of trash, pulling out half-burned scraps of food. She shoved them into her mouth like a starving dog. Chewing fast as if someone would take them away, Ryan stood still, unsure if he was dreaming. Her skin was pale blue, almost glowing in the fading light. Her eyes, large and bright like silver moons, looked wild with hunger and fear. She wore nothing but torn cloth stained with oil and dirt. No child should live like this, not even on Cora 7, he whispered. What are you doing here? But the girl only hissed and crouched lower, guarding her scraps. For a long moment, the man and the girl stared at each other. Ryan felt his chest tighten. Something inside him refused to walk away. The girl looked so fragile, yet there was something royal in her posture, even as she ate like an animal. The junkyard winds howled, carrying the smell of iron and smoke. Ryan took a slow step forward, holding his hands open to show he meant no harm, but the girl hissed again, sharp teeth flashing. She was not just afraid. She was ready to fight him. Ryan knelt down, lowering himself to her level. He pulled a food pack from his bag and placed it on the ground between them. The package hissed as it opened, releasing the smell of real bread and protein stew. The girl's nose twitched, her silver eyes locked onto the meal. But still, she did not move. She waited, suspicious, as if she had learned long ago that kindness was often a trap. Go on, Ryan whispered, his voice softer than he expected. He had traded with hundreds of aliens in his life, yet never had he spoken so carefully. The girl slowly crawled closer, her thin fingers trembling. She snatched the pack and tore it open with sharp speed. She ate like a storm, stuffing the food in her mouth until tears ran down her cheeks. She was not only hungry, she was desperate. Ryan watched, feeling something strange stir inside him. It was not pity. It was not duty. It was something deeper. In that moment, he saw her not as a creature from another race, not as a starving orphan. He saw her as a princess who had fallen into the dirt of the galaxy. The girl coughed, gasped, then looked at him with wide, wet eyes. For the first time, her lips moved to form a sound that was not a hiss. It was a single word in a language almost human, broken, but clear. She whispered, "Help." Ryan's heart pounded. The word was small, but it carried the weight of a galaxy. He knew then that this meeting was no accident. This girl was not just another lost soul of the junkyards. She was something more, something dangerous, something worth protecting. Above them, in the sky, engines roared, ships passed low, hunting for something. Ryan felt his instincts sharpen. Someone was looking for her, and if they found her, she would not live to see another day. He looked at the girl again, at her trembling hands and glowing eyes. She was no stray, no beggar. She was a secret wrapped in flesh and fear, and somehow she was now his responsibility. The junkyard had given him many broken things before, but never a princess in disguise. Ryan picked her up gently, despite her weak struggles. "Don't worry, little one," he whispered. "I'll keep you safe." The girl pressed her head against his chest, exhausted, and as the night grew dark, Ryan walked out of the junkyard with her in his arms. Neither of them knew it yet, but the galaxy had just changed. The cargo ship Wanderer was old, slow, and full of creaks. Captain Ryan had flown her across forgotten trade routes, carrying food, metal, and sometimes things he didn't want to name. But now she carried something stranger than any cargo before. A little alien girl hidden inside his cabin. The crew of the Wanderer was small, but sharp. Mara, the pilot, always suspicious, never smiling. Griggs, the mechanic, a heavy man with grease on his face and bad temper in his heart, and Leo, the youngest, a chatterbox who dreamed of seeing great battles but had only seen broken parts. They were survivors, not heroes, and they didn't like surprises. When Ryan first brought the girl on board, he told the crew nothing. He wrapped her in an old cloak and carried her past their stairs. "She's just a passenger," he said, voice firm, no questions. But questions grew anyway. Like rust in metal, the girl never spoke more than a whisper. She sat in the corner of Ryan's cabin, knees pulled to her chest, silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. When food came, she ate fast, like someone who feared it might be taken. When sleep came, she twitched and whimpered as if haunted. By shadows, Ryan tried to talk to her, but her replies were strange sounds, almost like songs, soft notes that echoed against the metal walls. They were not human words, not words he knew at all. Yet they stirred something inside him, like fragments of forgotten dreams. One night, Mara cornered him near the cockpit. "Who is she?" she demanded, arms crossed, eyes sharp as glass. "She's trouble, Ryan, I can smell it." Ryan shook his head. "She's just a child." But Mara's glare only deepened. "Children don't glow in the dark, Captain." Griggs spoke next, louder, angrier. "We're low on fuel, low on credits, and now you bring a stray on board? We're not a charity ship." Leo, the young one, leaned in with curiosity. "She looks different, Cap. Not like any alien I've seen. Where's she from?" Ryan gave no answer because he had none. But silence did not end the questions. The Wanderer drifted between stars. And yet Ryan felt eyes watching them. He noticed shadows on the radar, ships that seemed to follow at a distance, then vanish. Not pirates, not traders, something else. The girl always grew tense when the shadows appeared, as if she could sense them before the machines did. One evening, Ryan returned to his cabin and found her drawing. She had no paper, only dust on the metal floor. Her small fingers traced symbols in strange patterns, glowing faintly as she drew, circles, stars, lines that connected like constellations. Ryan stared in silence, chills running through him. When she noticed, she quickly wiped the drawings away, fear in her silver eyes. That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He kept hearing her one human word, the word she whispered in the junkyard: help. It clung to him like a chain, pulling him deeper into a mystery he wasn't ready to face. Then, without warning, the ship shook. Alarms howling through the corridors, Mara shouted from the cockpit. "We've got company." Ryan rushed to the controls, eyes widening as the radar lit up. 3 sleek ships had appeared out of nowhere, moving fast, their weapons armed. Not traders, not pirates. Hunters. The little girl appeared at the cabin door. Barefoot, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. She said nothing, but her small hands trembled as if she knew exactly who those hunters were. The crew looked at Ryan, panic rising. "Who is she, Captain?" Griggs roared, "What have you brought onto this ship?" Ryan didn't answer. He didn't know the truth yet, but he could feel it. This girl was not an ordinary passenger. She was the reason hunters stalked them across the stars. She was the reason danger had found the Wanderer. And now, whether the crew liked it or not, she was part of their fate. The little alien girl looked up at Ryan, her lips moving as if to speak. And for the first time since the junkyard, he wondered if her silence was about to break. The hunters did not attack at once. Their ship circled the Wanderer like wolves around a wounded beast, silent, patient, waiting. Inside the cargo ship, the crew argued while alarms flashed red across the cockpit. "She brought this," Griggs growled, pointing a thick finger toward the little alien girl. His voice was harsh, filled with fear. "Before her, we were ghosts in the trade lanes. No one cared about us. Now hunters follow us through the dark." Mara's eyes narrowed, sharp as knives. "He's right, Captain. She's more than a stray child, and whoever wants her will not stop." Ryan stood between them, his jaw tight. The girl was at his side, her silver eyes wide, her small body trembling. He placed a hand on her shoulder, steady but gentle. "She's under my protection," he said, his voice like iron. The words silenced the crew, but only for a moment. Outside, the hunters closed in. Inside, the girl did something unexpected. She whispered a word, not in her alien tongue, but in broken human speech. Home. The sound stopped everyone cold. Her voice was soft, but it echoed like thunder in their hearts. Mara tilted her head, frowning. She knows our words? Leo, curious as ever, leaned forward. Home? Where? Show us. The girl lifted a thin hand and pointed at the star map glowing above the controls. Her finger hovered over a system marked in red. A dead sector, forbidden after a great war. The name blinked. The Aurelius Expanse. Griggs cursed under his breath. That place is death. No ships return from there. The whole system is cursed. But the girl pressed her hand against the map, eyes glowing brighter. Home, she repeated, firmer this time, as if the word was carved into her soul. Ryan studied her carefully. Her small frame, her glowing eyes, the strange way the ship's lights seemed to flicker when she spoke. He thought of the symbols she had drawn on the floor, the way she ate, like an animal but carried herself like something more. She was no ordinary child. A truth was hiding inside her, a truth big enough to make warships hunt her across the stars. That night, while the Wanderer drifted silent in dark space, Ryan found her sitting on the floor of his cabin. Her fingers traced glowing patterns again, strange circles that pulsed like living light. He crouched beside her, whispering, "What are you drawing, little one?" She looked at him, fear in her eyes, then back at the glowing marks. Her lips moved, and though the words were strange, he almost understood. It sounded like royal, like bloodline, like lost. Before Ryan could ask more, the lights of the ship flickered again. Mara's voice crackled through the comms. "Captain, the hunters are moving. We can't hide forever." The girl's symbols on the floor pulsed one last time, then faded away. She crawled closer to Ryan and clutched his sleeve, her silver eyes burning with silent urgency. Ryan looked down at her, his chest heavy with a truth he did not want to believe. This was not a stray, not a lost child. This was someone important, someone whose very blood carried power. And if the hunters wanted her this badly, then she might be the last of something once great. Back in the cockpit, Mara whispered under her breath as she checked the scanners. "Captain, it feels like we're carrying a crown jewel and the whole galaxy knows it." Her words hung in the air like a curse. Ryan turned to the star map again, staring at the red system where the girl had pointed. The Aurelius Expanse, forbidden, dead, cursed. Yet in her voice, in her glowing eyes, he heard whispers of something greater. Not a curse, but a destiny. The girl spoke one final word before curling into sleep, her voice soft as starlight. "Princess." Ryan froze, his heart pounding. He looked at her fragile body, her dirt-stained face, and realized the hunters were not after a lost child. They were after royalty. And now, the Wanderer carried not just a passenger, but the last hope of a fallen empire. The hunters did not wait any longer. Their ships cut through the black sky like blades of fire, closing in on the Wanderer with deadly speed. Red lights filled the cockpit as alarms screamed across the panels. Mara gripped the controls, her knuckles white. "They've locked onto us. Captain, if we don't move, we're dead." The Wanderer was no warship. She was old, patched together, built for hauling cargo, not fighting battles. But in that moment, she had to be a shield, a lifeline, a hope. Ryan stood behind Mara, his face hard as steel. "Hold steady, don't let them push us into the asteroid field," he ordered. The ship rattled as the first blast of plasma streaked past their hull, burning the dark with blue fire. The girl appeared in the doorway, barefoot, her silver eyes glowing brighter than ever. She was trembling, but not from fear alone. Something inside her was waking, something strange and dangerous. Griggs roared, his face red with panic. "Keep her away from the controls. She's the reason they're here." But before anyone could move her, the ship shook again, harder this time. A direct hit scorched the outer hull. Sparks rained across the cockpit. Leo screamed, clutching the wall. "We can't take another like that, Cap." Ryan grabbed the girl's shoulders, crouching low so his eyes met hers. "Listen to me, little one," he said firmly. If you can do anything, anything to keep us alive, now is the time. She blinked at him, her lips trembling. Then she raised her hands slowly. Her small fingers traced glowing shapes in the air, the same symbols she once drew on the floor. This time, the symbols did not fade. They burned like fire, alive and sharp, floating between her and the cockpit glass. The hunters fired again, 3 shots in quick bursts, but before they struck, the girl let out a sharp cry, her voice high and strange. The symbols flared, spreading like a shield across the Wanderer's hull. The blasts struck the glowing barrier and exploded harmlessly into sparks. The crew gasped in shock. Even Mara's hard eyes widened. That's impossible, she whispered. The girl collapsed to her knees, sweat on her blue skin, her body shaking. She had saved them, but the effort tore the strength from her small frame. Rian caught her before she fell, holding her close. He felt the heat of her strange power burning against his chest. "Easy," he whispered. "You did it. You saved us." But the hunters were not done. Their ships pulled back, regrouping as if realizing what kind of power they faced. Griggs slammed his fist against the console. "What is she, Captain? She's not a passenger. She's not even just a child." Rian looked at the girl in his arms, weak but still glowing faintly. He thought of the words she whispered the night before. Princess. And now he understood why fleets would cross the stars for her, why hunters would risk their lives to take her back. She was not only royalty, she was a weapon, a key, something greater than anyone had believed. Mara pulled the ship hard into a dive, dodging the next wave of fire. Her voice shook, but stayed strong. "Captain, we can't outrun them forever. Make a choice, fight or flee." Rian looked at his crew, at the girl, at the hunters closing in. His heart knew the answer before his mind did. "We fight as long as we can. Then we run," he said. The words sounded mad, but in the silence that followed, no one argued. The girl stirred weakly, her eyes half closed. Her small hand reached up and clutched Rian's sleeve, and though her voice was faint, it carried the power of a vow. "Home," she whispered again, her breath like starlight. Rian nodded, his jaw tight. "Then we'll get you home," he promised, even if the whole galaxy tried to stop them. Outside, the hunters circled closer, their engines burning like hungry beasts. Inside, the Wanderer braced for the storm, and in the arms of a human captain, a little alien girl, the last princess, glowed with the light of destiny. The Wanderer limped away from the hunters. Her old engines screamed as Mara pushed them beyond safe limits. The ship rattled like it would fall apart, but somehow it held together. Behind them, the hunters broke formation, waiting, watching, not chasing yet. It was as if they knew the Wanderer could not run forever. Inside the cabin, silence weighed heavier than steel. The girl slept, her head resting against Rian's chest, her small body weak after using her strange power. Every time she breathed, faint sparks of light flickered around her skin. Like starlight trapped under flesh, Rian looked at her with both awe and fear. He had seen many things in his life: pirates, mercenaries, machines of war, but never a child like this. Griggs was the first to break the silence, his voice low but sharp. "Captain, you need to explain," he said, his eyes burning. "What is she? What have you dragged us into?" Rian didn't answer right away, because deep inside he didn't know all the answers himself. Later that night, when the crew rested in uneasy silence, Rian went down to the ship's storage bay. He began searching through the crates of salvage they had picked up on Cora 7 among broken metal and burned-out cores. One crate stood out. It was old, older than anything he had touched before, sealed with strange markings he had seen drawn by the girl. He forced it open, the lid creaking. Like a coffin, inside were data crystals, cracked but still alive with faint glow. Rian carried them to the console and let the ship's old system read their contents. The screen flickered, broken images and voices spilled out. And then, a name appeared that froze his blood. Lyra of the Aurelius throne, last daughter of the Star Dynasty, Ryan stared at the words as if they were fire. The images showed a great city of towers made of glass and light, ships in formation, banners of silver flame flying high, and at the center, a royal family, tall and proud, their eyes glowing silver. Like the little girl, one by one the images darkened, the towers burning, the banners falling, warships raining fire on the planet below, the dynasty broken, crushed, erased. Ryan leaned closer, his throat dry. The final image was a message from an alien voice, deep and cold. No heir shall survive, the bloodline must end. But someone had survived, a child smuggled away, hidden among junk, left to starve until chance brought her to him. Not chance, Ryan thought. Destiny. When he returned to the cabin, the girl stirred in her sleep, whispering words in her alien tongue. He couldn't understand them all, but one word repeated again and again. Lyra. Her name. Her truth. The secret she carried. Mara entered quietly, her face pale. I saw the files, Captain, she said softly. She's not just royalty. She's the last of a fallen empire. If the hunters get her, they won't just kill her, they'll use her. Ryan nodded, his jaw tight. That's why they chase us, he whispered. Because she's not only a princess, she's a key to power. Griggs stormed in, his voice rising. Then we get rid of her before we all die, he barked. No throne, no empire, nothing is worth our lives. Leo stood between them, nervous but firm. She's just a girl. She trusts us, he argued. You can't throw her away like trash. Ryan looked at his crew, at their fear, their anger, their doubt. Then he looked down at the child, Princess Lyra, sleeping with her hand clutching his sleeve even in dreams. And in that moment his choice was clear. We protect her, he said, his voice steady. No matter the cost. The room went silent. Even Griggs, red with fury, said nothing, because deep inside, each of them knew the truth. If this girl truly was the last of a royal bloodline, then her fate was not just hers alone. Her survival, or her death, could shape the future of the galaxy. Outside the ship, the hunters regrouped. Their engines glowed like angry stars as they prepared to strike again. Inside, Ryan held the girl closer. She was no longer a nameless orphan, no longer a mystery. She was Princess Lyra, last heir of the Star Throne, and now her destiny was bound to his. The Wanderer floated in the shadows of a quiet nebula, hidden for now but not safe. The hunters would find them again. It was only a matter of time. Inside the ship, tension grew like a storm. Princess Lyra slept in Ryan's cabin, her breaths soft, her dreams troubled. But in the cockpit the crew argued over her fate. She's a royal, Mara said coldly, her eyes locked on Ryan. Her bloodline once commanded fleets, ruled systems, crushed enemies. Do you know what will happen? If her enemies capture her, they will raise her as a weapon, or kill her to end her line forever. Griggs slammed his fist on the table, making tools rattle. She's already a weapon. You saw what she did, glowing symbols in the air, blocking warship fire. A child shouldn't have that power, Captain. We should leave her on the nearest rock and be done with it. Leo's voice rose quickly, trembling but bold. No, she's not a weapon. She's a person. She asked us for help, and we gave it. Are we going to break that promise now? The room filled with silence after his words. Ryan stood apart from them, arms crossed, eyes heavy with thought. He looked out the cockpit window at the swirling gas of the nebula, glowing red and blue like a living sea. The truth was simple yet heavy. If they kept Lyra, they would be hunted until death. If they left her, they would live, but she would die. It was not just a choice about survival. It was a choice about what it meant to be human. Ryan finally spoke, his voice low but steady. When I found her, she was nothing but a starving child in the dirt, he said. No crown, no palace, just a girl who needed help. I gave her food, I gave her safety, and she trusted me. If we throw her away, now then what are we? Mara looked away, her jaw tight. Griggs muttered curses under his breath, but Leo's eyes shone with quiet pride. Ryan continued. The galaxy is full of monsters who see weakness and crush it. If we do the same, we're no different. She is Hope, whether she knows it or not. And if humanity means anything, it means protecting the innocent even when it costs us everything. Silence followed his words, heavy and final. The crew knew he had made his choice. They would not abandon Princess Lyra, no matter the danger. But choices carry consequences. And even as they spoke, danger was already inside the ship. Someone had betrayed them. Later that night, when Rian checked the engines, he noticed something strange. A hidden signal pulsing quietly from the ship's systems. A tracker, transmitting their location. He ripped it out, sparks flying, his teeth gritted in fury. Someone on his crew had sold them. When he returned to the cabin, Lyra was awake, her silver eyes glowing in the dim light. She looked at him with sadness, as if she already knew. Not safe, she whispered in her broken human voice. They come. Ryan knelt beside her, his hand firm on her shoulder. Then we'll be ready, he said, though his chest burned with doubt. The next morning, the hunters appeared on the scanners again, closer, faster. Mara cursed, slamming her fists on the console. They found us, Captain. Someone gave them our trail, Griggs shouted. I told you she would bring death to us. But Ryan raised his voice over them all. No more arguments. We stand together, we fight together, and we protect her. Lyra stepped forward, her small frame glowing faintly as she lifted her chin. For the first time, she did not look like a lost child. She looked like what she truly was, a princess. Her voice was soft but clear. I trust you. And in that moment, the choice was sealed. The crew of the Wanderer were no longer just traders, no longer just survivors. They were guardians of the last princess of a fallen empire. The hunters would come, the battles would rise, but humanity had chosen. And their choice was to protect hope no matter the cost. The hunters came at dawn. Their ships burst out of the nebula like arrows of flame, cutting through the shadows with blazing engines. The Wanderer shook as Mara threw the old ship into a dive, alarms screaming across every corridor. They've locked us again, she shouted. We can't outrun them this time. Ryan gripped the captain's chair, his eyes sharp. Hold them off as long as you can, he ordered. We're not giving them the girl. Behind him, Lyra stood barefoot. Her small hands clenched, her silver eyes burning with fear and something else. The crew looked at her, and for a moment none saw a child. They saw a symbol of everything hunting them. The first blast struck the ship's rear, shaking the hull with a roar. Sparks flew in the engine room as Griggs cursed and fought to keep the power steady. Another hit like that and we'll burn, he growled through the comms. Leo, pale but determined, scrambled to the weapons console. Though the Wanderer's guns were little more than scrap cannons, he fired anyway, bolts of light streaking out, harmless against the hunters' shields. The hunters pressed closer, their formation tight, their weapons glowing like suns. Mara's hands flew over the controls, pulling the Wanderer between asteroids in a desperate dance. Chunks of rock spun past the glass, colliding and shattering in bursts of fire. One wrong move and the old ship would be crushed to dust. Ryan turned to Lyra, his voice firm. You saved us once before, can you do it again? Her lips trembled, sweat ran down her pale skin. I try, she whispered, her voice shaking. Then she raised her hands and the air grew heavy. Symbols of light spread from her fingers, filling the cockpit with strange patterns. They glowed brighter, stronger, as her small body shivered with effort. The hunters fired, 3 blasts of plasma cutting through space, but Lyra cried out, her voice sharp and alien, and the symbols flared. A shield bloomed around the Wanderer, the blasts striking and scattering like sparks against glass. The crew gasped. But the victory was short. Lyra fell forward, collapsing into Ryan's arms, her power draining from her small frame. She was strong, but not endless, and the hunters knew it. They'll keep firing until she breaks, Mara shouted. Captain, we need another way. Ryan's eyes darted to the asteroid field ahead, jagged rocks spinning like knives. It's suicide, Griggs barked over the comms. No ship makes it through alive. But Ryan's jaw tightened. Then we'll be the first. Mara cursed but obeyed, plunging the Wanderer into the storm of rocks. The ship rattled, scraped. Sparks flew as metal tore against stone. Bolts of fire from the hunters chased them through the chaos, blasting asteroids apart in explosions of dust and flame. The crew held their breath, each second stretching like eternity. Every sound was danger. Every shake was death waiting. Then came the worst. A hunter ship followed them in, sleek and deadly, weaving through the rocks like a predator, its weapons charged, the glow filling the cockpit glass. Ryan held Lyra close, whispering, "Stay with me, little one." But before the blast came, Lyra stirred, her weak hand rising. She traced one final symbol, small and faint, and an asteroid shifted, pulled by invisible force, slamming into the hunter ship with a the explosion lit the field like a second sun, scattering debris everywhere. The Wanderer burst through the last cluster of rocks, smoke trailing from her hull. Behind them, only wreckage remained. The hunters slowed, unable to follow through the storm. For now, they were free. Inside the cockpit, the crew gasped in relief. Leo whooped, his young voice trembling with joy. Mara's hands shook as she pulled the ship steady. Griggs muttered something that almost sounded like a prayer, but Rian looked down at Lyra, unconscious in his arms, her small hand still glowing faintly, her face pale and exhausted. He felt a weight heavier than any ship could carry. They had survived the fire, but at a terrible cost. She was burning, herself out to keep them alive, and if the hunters kept coming, she would not last. Ryan whispered to her softly, a vow more than words. "We'll find your home, princess. I swear it." Outside, the stars burned cold and endless. But inside, the Wanderer, hope flickered like a fragile flame. And in that fragile flame, humanity's choice burned bright. The Wanderer drifted into silence after the storm. Her hull was scorched, her engines weak, but she was alive, and so were the people inside her, though fear still clung to their hearts. Like chains, Rian stood in the cockpit, his eyes on the star map. The girl had pointed to one place again and again. The Aralise expanse, now it lay before them. A dead system wrapped in shadow, planets shattered, moons broken, a graveyard of an empire that once ruled the stars. The scanners picked up no signals, no life, only ruins floating in endless dark. Mara's voice was low, uneasy. "We should not be here, Captain. This place is cursed." Griggs spat. "Cursed or not, it looks empty. Maybe that's the only safe thing about it." But Ryan felt the weight of history pressing against them. This was no safe place. This was a tomb. Lyra stirred awake as the ship slid into orbit, her silver eyes opened wide. And for the first time, they did not shine with fear. They shone with recognition. She pressed her small hand to the glass of the cockpit window, whispering one word, "Home." The crew followed her gaze. Below lay a planet of ruins, cities burned black, towers broken like bones. The surface glowed with faint scars of old fire. It was a world that had been proud once, but now it lay silent, forgotten. And yet, when Lyra looked at it, her eyes filled with tears, Rian gave the order, "Take us down." The Wanderer broke through the clouds, smoke and dust swirling around her hull. They landed on a cracked plain where buildings rose like broken teeth. The air was thin, heavy with ash. Every step crunched against the bones of a fallen world. Lyra moved ahead of them, her small feet silent against the stone. She walked with strange certainty, like she had walked these ruins before. Her glowing eyes scanned the towers, the fallen statues, the shattered halls. And finally, she stopped at a great arch half buried in rubble. Her hand touched the stone, and the ruins stirred, symbols lit up across the arch, glowing the same silver as her eyes. The ground shook, dust falling from the broken walls. Then a light burst upward, forming shapes in the air, holograms of a time long gone. The crew gasped as ghostly figures appeared before them, tall beings with silver eyes wearing robes of flame and crowns of light. The royal family of Aurelis. And among them a small child with glowing eyes, the same face, the same spark. "Princess Lyra," the hologram spoke in a language none of the crew understood, but Lyra raised her hand and her voice joined with the echo. The words were broken, half in human tongue, half in her own. "My family, my home, gone," she whispered. Last one. The figures faded, leaving silence heavy as stone. The crew looked at her with new eyes, not as a child, not even just as a princess, but as the last living heir of a world destroyed. Ryan knelt beside her, his voice soft. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "You have us now." Her small hand trembled as it touched his, her eyes still wet with tears but filled with trust. But the ruins had given more than memories. Far above, a beacon flared into life, unseen by human eyes, but bright to those who hunted her. A signal sent across the stars, announcing that the lost princess of Aurelis had returned. Ryan's chest grew cold as the sensors beeped with new energy. Mara's voice shook. "Captain, someone will see that. Someone will come." Griggs muttered. "We should have never set foot here." But Ryan only tightened his grip on Lyra's hand. He knew the hunters were already on their way. The ruins had woken the past, and now the future was racing to meet them. The ruins of Aurelis slept in silence. The wind whispered through broken towers, carrying the ghostly echo of a fallen empire. The crew of the Wanderer set up camp among the shattered stones, though no one dared to sleep deeply. They knew the beacon had been lit. They knew hunters would come. Ryan stood watch near the arch where Lyra had awakened the old holograms. The girl slept beside him, curled under a blanket. Her silver eyes finally closed. She looked peaceful, yet fragile, as if one wrong breath could shatter her. Ryan swore quietly to himself that nothing would touch her while he still breathed. But shadows were already moving within his own crew. Fear eats faster than hunger, and doubt spreads quicker than fire. Griggs sat apart from the others, his face grim, his eyes never leaving Lyra. To him, she was not a child, not even a princess. She was danger wearing the shape of innocence, and danger could not be trusted. Later, when the others dozed, Griggs slipped away. He carried a small comm device, hidden and silent. His thick fingers pressed the code, sending a message into the dark sky. Coordinates, location, a promise of reward. "The girl is here," he whispered. "Come and take her." The betrayal was quiet, but the consequences roared. Hours later, alarms screamed on the Wanderer's scanners. Mara's sharp voice cut through the silence. "Ships incoming, too many, too fast." Ryan's blood turned cold. The hunters had returned, and this time, they came with a fleet. Before the crew could prepare, the night exploded with fire. Warships descended over the ruins, their engines shaking the earth. Beams of light cut across the broken towers, searching, burning, hunting. Lyra woke with a cry, clutching Ryan's arm, her eyes wide with terror. "They come," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They come for me." Ryan pulled her close, his eyes scanning the crew, and there he saw it. Griggs standing back, his face pale but hard. He didn't need proof. The truth was written in the mechanic's eyes. "You," Ryan growled, his voice like thunder. "You called them." Griggs didn't deny it, his jaw set, his hands shaking. "You're blind, Captain," he spat. "She'll kill us all. She'll drag us into a war we can't win. I just gave us a way out." Mara stepped forward, her hand near her blaster. "You doomed us, Griggs. There is no way out now." Leo's young voice cracked with anger. "You betrayed her, betrayed all of us." But Griggs only shouted back, "She's not a girl, she's a weapon, and I won't die for her." The hunters struck before the crew could argue further. Explosions ripped across the ruins, stone and fire raining down. The Wanderer shook as her shields flared weakly against the bombardment. Ryan grabbed Lyra and pulled her toward the ship. "Mara, get us in the air now," he roared. The crew sprinted through falling rubble, the night alive with the sound of death. As they reached the ship, a squad of hunters landed on the ground, armored soldiers with weapons glowing. One raised his voice, amplified and cold. "Hand over. The princess and your deaths will be quick." Lyra froze, tears running down her dirt-stained face. Ryan held her tighter, his own voice fierce. "You'll never have her." The crew fought their way onto the ship, blasters flashing, stones exploding. Mara fired the engines, the Wanderer rising through smoke and fire. But as the ship lifted, Griggs made his final move. He lunged for Lyra, trying to rip her from Ryan's arms. "You don't understand," he shouted. "If they get her, maybe they'll spare us." Ryan's fist struck hard, sending the mechanics sprawling. No one touches her, he snarled, his eyes burning with fury. Lyra clung to him, her small body shaking. The ship roared into the sky, breaking free from the ruins below, but the betrayal had cost them dearly. The hunters were close, their fleet chasing, their wrath endless. And though Griggs lay bound and silent in the corner, the damage was already done. The princess had been betrayed, and now the war was coming to meet them. The stars burned with fire as the hunters closed in. Their fleet filled the void, sharp warships gliding like predators around the wounded wanderer. The old cargo ship rattled as Mara forced her engines to full power, smoke trailing behind her. But there was no place left to hide, no nebula to slip into, no asteroids to cover. Their flight, it was the endgame. Ryan stood in the cockpit, his hand tight on Lyra's shoulder. The little princess leaned against him, weak but awake, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Her power had saved them many times, but each time had drained her more. Now she looked like a flame, about to burn out. Ryan whispered softly, "Stay with me, little one." The comm crackled with a voice from the hunter's lead ship, deep and cold. "Human vessel, surrender the girl, and your lives will be spared." Mara spat at the screen. "Spared only long enough for them to gut us." Griggs sat bound in the corner, shame burning in his eyes, but his voice still bitter. "You can't win, Captain. Look at them. They'll tear us apart." Ryan ignored him, his eyes locked on the enemy fleet. The hunters fired first, beams of plasma lashing across the void. The Wanderer shook violently, sparks raining from the ceiling. Leo screamed as he clung to the weapons console, firing their weak cannons into the dark. The blasts barely scratched the hunters' shields, like throwing rocks at giants, he muttered through clenched teeth. Mara pulled the ship into a spiral, weaving through the storm of fire. But the Wanderer was too slow, too old. Another blast ripped through her side. Alarms howled. The ship groaned like it was dying. "We can't take much more," Mara shouted, her voice raw. "Then we make this count," Ryan growled. He looked at Lyra, her eyes glowing brighter with every blast, her small body trembling. "You have more power than all of us," he said, "but you don't have to. Carry it alone, we'll fight with you." Lyra blinked up at him, her lips trembling, then she whispered a single word. "Together." She raised her hands, the air humming with energy. Symbols of light spread across the cockpit, flowing down the ship's walls like living fire. Ryan felt it surge through him, through Mara, through Lio, even through Griggs. The Wanderer itself seemed to awaken, old circuits glowing with power that had not burned in centuries. The hunters fired again, but this time, the Wanderer's hull shone with Lyra's shield. The blasts scattered harmlessly, turning to sparks against the glowing barrier. Then the old ship answered with her cannons, each shot burning brighter, sharper as if powered by something greater. One hunter ship exploded in fire, its wreckage spinning into the void. The crew shouted in shock, half in fear, half in triumph. But the hunters pressed harder, more ships diving in, their weapons blazing. The Wanderer roared through the chaos, weaving and striking. A freighter turned warship by the will of a child. Mara screamed with adrenaline. "She's guiding us, Captain. It's like the ship is alive," Ryan shouted back. "Then let's show them we're not prey." The battle became a storm. Fire against fire, light against light. The Wanderer fought with fury, but Lyra's small frame shook harder with every blast she deflected. Her power burned bright. But her body was fading. Ryan felt her weaken against him, her breath shallow. He whispered fiercely, "Hold on, Princess, hold on." The hunter's flagship loomed ahead, a massive dreadnought with guns like mountains. It powered its main cannon, a beam strong enough to tear planets apart. The crew froze, knowing this was the end. But Lyra stood tall, her eyes blazing silver, her small voice ringing like thunder. "No more." She raised both hands, symbols exploding across the stars. The dreadnought's cannon fired, but the beam shattered against her light. Then the power surged outward, striking the flagship with a force beyond human or alien. The massive warship cracked, split, and burst apart in fire. The hunters scattered in panic, their fleet broken, their courage burned away. Inside the Wanderer, silence followed, broken only by Lyra's gasp. Her glowing eyes dimmed, her small body collapsing into Ryan's arms. He held her close, his heart pounding with fear and pride. "You did it," he whispered. "You saved us all." But as the wreckage drifted across the stars, Ryan knew the battle was not the end. It was only the beginning. Because now, the galaxy would know the truth. The lost princess of Arelis had returned, and she had power enough to shatter empires. The battlefield was silent at last. The wreckage of hunter ships drifted among the stars, glowing faintly like dying embers. The great dreadnought was gone, torn apart by the light of a child who should never have carried such power, and the Wanderer, though cracked and scarred, floated in victory. Inside the ship, the crew sat in silence. Mara's hands trembled on the controls. Leo stared wide-eyed at the stars, and even Griggs hung his head, his anger broken into shame. Only Ryan moved, holding Lyra gently in his arms. She looked so small now, her silver glow faint, her breaths weak and shallow. Ryan whispered, "Stay. With me, princess, don't fade, not now." Lyra stirred, her lips moving. Her voice was no louder than a breath, but every soul in the cockpit heard it. "Not alone," she whispered, her silver eyes opening just enough to shine. The words struck Ryan's heart like fire. He realized then that she had never been fighting for thrones or crowns. She had only been fighting for family, for belonging. The crew gathered around her. Leo knelt beside Ryan, his young voice shaking. "She saved us, Captain. She saved everyone." Mara, hard as stone, placed her hand lightly on Lyra's shoulder, her voice low. "She is more than a princess, she's hope." Even Griggs, once, her betrayer, spoke with heavy regret. "I was wrong, Captain. She's worth more than my fear." The ship's sensors beeped softly, not danger this time, but signals. Other ships, small and scattered, drifting close. Refugees, survivors of old battles, voices calling across the comms. "Is it true?" one asked, broken and trembling. "Is the bloodline alive?" Ryan looked at Lyra, who now leaned against his chest with fragile strength. He answered firmly, "Yes, she lives, and she fights for more than herself." Word spread fast across the void. The hunters had failed. The lost princess had risen, and though she was only a child, her light had shattered a fleet. For many, it was enough to believe that hope could be born again. On the ruins of Arelis, fires still smoldered, but people began to gather. Survivors of the fallen world, hidden in caves and shadows, crawled out to see the glow in the sky. They whispered her name, Lyra, last daughter, lost princess, living crown. And when she stood before them, weak but unbroken, they bowed. Not to a throne, not to power, but to the symbol of a child who had endured. Ryan watched her with quiet pride. He had found her in dirt and junk, starving and alone. Now she stood tall, even if her legs shook, her silver eyes shining with courage. She turned back to him, her small hand reaching for his. In her voice, simple and clear, she said, "You are my protector, my family." For the first time in years, Ryan felt something greater than survival. He felt purpose. Mara smiled faintly, Leo grinned wide, and even Griggs lowered his head in respect. The crew of the Wanderer had become more than smugglers and survivors. They were guardians of a future larger than themselves. But even as they stood among ruins and survivors, Ryan knew the truth. The hunters would return. Other powers would rise. The galaxy would not forgive so easily. The war was not over. It had only just begun. Yet in his heart, Ryan felt no fear, because he had seen what hope could do. He had seen a child turn despair into fire. He had seen humanity choose not the easy path, but the right one. And as long as Lyra lived, as long as she called him family, the galaxy still had a chance. The stars stretched endless before them, cold and dangerous. But now they were not just stars. They were a road, a promise, a future waiting to be fought for. Ryan lifted his eyes to the sky and whispered, "Let them come. We'll be ready." And, beside him, the little alien girl who once ate scraps like a dog stood as a princess once more. not just the princess of Arelis, but the princess of humanity's hope.